What's up guys, this is Professor Spawn, and in this tutorial we are going to start off with string. In the last tutorial we have seen what are functions and how do we define functions in Kotlin, right? So to start off with string, what I'm going to do is inside this Kotlin package I'm going to again create a new package named as strings, and inside this strings package I'm going to create a new class, Kotlin class file, which will be named as strings demo, right? So I have created the strings demo inside this package of com.kotlin.strings, and I'm going to write function main, right? This is our entry point. See here this green play icon. This tells that you can run this code from here. You just need to click this and run this code, right? So what are strings? So strings can be thought of as the sequence of characters grouped together, right? Like A is a character, we call it as char. Some people can pronounce it as char, some people say char. So I think the correct pronunciation is char, right? So this is a char, right? But what if this group together, right? If let's say that I want to have this A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? So this actually gives us an error because char can only hold one value. So to do that, you need to wrap it around in a double quote, right? So this array or sequence of char, it actually tells that this is a string, right? So what are different ways you can define a strings in Kotlin? So I'm going to create a val, let's say some passage, right? And the first way of declaring a string is to have three double quotes, right? I'm going to have these three double quotes here. So you can define this, but let's remove this for a moment, dot trim indent, and I'm going to have this here as my name is, let's say that I want to have this a new line, right? And I'm going to print this up. I'm going to print this passage here. So let's run this code. You have defined one string with a name of passage, and you assign this value as my name, and spawn is in a new line. So let's run this code, right? So this will be compile build, and we will have our output as my name is spawn. But see here, this this space around here, this doesn't look good. If you want to remove this space, you saw that method earlier, trim indent. So what this will do is this will trim this indentation here, right? This will trim this indentation, and we'll have the strings without that space here, right? So this space will be trimmed, right? So this type of string, we call it as raw strings, which starts from this three double quotes, right? These are called as raw strings, right? Raw strings cannot have escaped characters. So here you see this, you have defined this pawn in a new line. If it were you want to define it in a double quote string, you would have to done something like this. My name is slash n spawn, right? So I'm going to again create this as I'm going to name this as escaped string, and I'm going to print this up. So I'm going to have this escaped string, and I'm going to run this code, right? So I'm running this code, and I again have the same output, but here notice that I have defined strings as a double quote, and to have this spawn in a new line, I have this escaped characters, which is \n. This tells Kotlin that after this is and a space, there is a new line character, and I have here spawn. In the same fashion, you can have /tab. This is as good as if you are pressing this tab, right? There is a space around here. So let's run this code. What happens when we have /t inside a string? And if you see here that there is this extra space which occurs due to this /t. So I'm going to again put this back to /n. So this is an escaped string. This is what we call an escaped string, right? As it has escaped characters, it can have escaped characters, right? And this is a raw string which starts from, you know, some string value, and I can have here. So all this code, you will get it inside the description, right? Inside the description of this video. And I want you to, open this code and explore it, right? And explore this code, try your method, you try your hands on this your tutorial, and let's do some operation on this string, right? So if you type this escape strings dot, you have here the first one has, this array. So this basically, if you want a char at position, let's say 4, so you have to do something like this. You need to have that string, and you need to pass the index of the position you want to get the char of, right? So let's print this up. This will return a single character, a single char. So let's run this code again. So this will be build, compile, and we will have our output as A. So at position 4, we have the char as A, right? So in the same way, we have various operations, like you can have, equals. This one is very important. This one is really very important because we are going to use this, right? So this will say that this is, I'm going to have here as, the slash n, and let's print this up, guys. So I'm going to print this up. So I'm going to print this up inside this, right? So I'm going to run this code, and this will have the value as true, right? Because this tells that the string value inside this variable escape strings, does it matches with the strings I have provided? If it does, return true. If it doesn't, return false. If you see here in this equals method, right, this has a return type of boolean. So this, let's say that if I have this m as small, and if you run this code, even though the char are same, but it's still written as false because we have here as m as, in a small letter. So how do you ignore that? To ignore that, you can have here as ignore case to be true, right? So ignore case to be true. So if you run this code, what this will do is it will ignore this casing to be, it will ignore this case, and it will see if all this char matches, right? Exactly. So even if I have small m, it still return me a true, right? So there is also another method which we have something called as contains, right? And I'm going to pass this as name, right? So I'm going to have this, wrap this inside this println, and let's see what is the output of this, because this will specifically do the operation something like, if name is inside this escape string, which is there, so we should have an ideal output of true, right? So let's run this code, and we should have the output as true, which is true because name is present inside this escape string, or the name this escape string contains this string value of, name, right? So just take this project, explore strings. I suggest you to go to the kotlinlang.org, and there is a good documentation on this string, right? So for this, I'm going to wrap this up, and in the next tutorial, we are going to start off with the control statements in Kotlin, right? And then we will move ahead with the collections in Kotlin. Till then, goodbye, see you in next tutorial.